Hello friends, it's me, and today let's watch William is a Thief from the game series. Together, let's go. Let's start. Thank you.
So you've chosen to take the evidence presented more literally. You want to believe that the reason that David Murray and David Afton appear to be one and the same is because they are one and the same. Or at least that both Davids are being played by the same character, M2. Interesting choice. Well, let's take a look at the evidence and see how Afton shapes up in this one.
Let's start. So this is one of the two videos of the ending of Game Theory FNAF. Did Fazbear really steal everything? So I'm going to watch the other video later after I'm done with this particular video. Notice that this is an unlisted video, so sorry, game theorists. Sorry.
Before we can talk about what this path would solve, we have to figure out the how of it all. How was William able to get control of M2 and turn it into his son, David, the crying child Afton? Well, that comes down to the secret ending of Secret of the Mimic. You see, in that ending, we complete moon.exe. We get some glitched permissions that allow us to access special doors in the Murray household. And from there, we fix M2, turning them into the perfect mimic of David. M2 then goes to bed and shuts off as the game fades to black. This is the only ending where M2 is completely fixed, which allows him to live on as a child, as David, and therefore, in the future, could become the crying child that we know from the original games. One of the text logs we get from William directly confirms that he owns the land Murray's costume manor is standing on, including the house Edwin's parents built on the top of the hill, the one where M2 now sleeps. With Fazbear's ownership of the land and the IP and the inventions inside, that M2 would now belong to William. And so, with the disappearance of Edwin, William would likely show up, at least eventually, to claim what was his. And when he did, he would come across this incredible little machine, mimicking Edwin's son, David. Now, Fazbear already knew about this special animatronic that could fit into any costume and learn any routine.
Someone told him about M2.
But seeing it actually imitating a child, essentially bringing a kid back to life, that would absolutely have intrigued Afton. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, it's clear how much he idolizes characters like Henry, those with animatronic and creative genius, who were able to imitate the spark of life itself. He wants to reach their level of genius, to understand, to go even further beyond what they did. Sure, he could have just taken M2, turned it into scrap, or shoved it into another costume, but if he could figure out how it ticked, then he could create more and help his empire grow. It's for this reason that we see camera feeds down in the sister location bunker, displaying the FNAF 4 bedroom, the same bedroom where M2 was sleeping. He is monitoring M2, watching its every move. He threw different stimuli at it, high-pitched frequencies that mess with its vision, creating animatronics that looked like the stuff of nightmares, all to see how lifelike this thing truly was to a child. After
Wow, that is quite dark if you think about it. This is a robot, this is an animatronics, yes, but it thinks that it's a human child, and you are subjecting that individual with such cruel experiments. That is dark. And your reasoning is hey, it's not an actual human. Hey, it's for the betterment of everyone. Hey, it's so that there's proper technological research. But wow, it's dark, very dark.
Was trying to understand how it worked. That's also why we see the Funtime animatronics using technology that allows them to mimic sounds and actions. It was Afton trying to replicate that same technology, but it wasn't fully there yet, because William wasn't the original creator, although they clearly did manage to mimic one thing correctly. In order not to raise suspicion, Afton would need to make M2 look like another one of his kids. We see masks down in the sister location bunker, Afton's attempts to create realistic human costumes, one that M2 would be able to wear out and about, which is why when the Funtimes encounter Michael Afton all those years later, another one of the Afton kids, they knew what they had to do. They mimicked what they saw M2 doing all those years ago, jumping inside the skin of one of the Afton kids in order to explore the world. They were able to mimic an action, but they lacked the nuance of understanding. Just like M2 would stuff people into suits because as far as it could tell, that's just where human bodies went. Feels like there's maybe a bigger lesson we could take away from that. But there are a bunch of other pieces of evidence from previous games that suddenly begin to line up when we continue down this train of thought. For example, why does Mike bully his brother? Of course, older brothers can just be mean sometimes. I should know, I am one. But if David Afton is actually a robot kid...
Tom, don't dox yourself like that. Don't do that. Sorry.
wearing a skin suit and they are getting all of this attention from their father, well, that would make any kid jealous and want to lash out. They aren't his real son. Why is he getting all the attention instead of me? It's not fair. Michael then goes on to have an obsession with the show The Immortal and the Restless, which the most famous and frustrating line is,
"The baby isn't mine."
We've tried to make sense of this thing for years, but now we might finally have an answer. It's not that one of the kids was adopted or that Afton had a kid with another woman. It's literally not a baby. It's a robot mimicking another man's child, David Murray. In the security logbook, Michael even comments that he relates most to Clara, as she is the one who seems to see the world she lives in as crazy. Just like Michael doesn't understand how people can't tell that this is a weird robot kid that his dad is claiming to be his sibling. But the biggest thing that this solves is actually less to do with M2 itself and more how the mimic existing in these early parts of the timeline might solve the most infamous line in all of FNAF. I will put you back together. When this line first showed up, it confused the heck out of all of us. Up until this point, Afton had been speaking in a bright gold text using the color FFF57, and he starts off that way during his final speech to the dying crying child too. However, when we then get to the put you back together part, it's a paler shade of yellow, FFFA0. It was confusing as there weren't really any other characters left to claim that color, nor did it make sense for it to be anyone other than Afton. It wasn't helped that in Ultimate Custom Night, when we're seemingly playing as Afton in Eternal Purgatory, we get lines from Nightmare Fredbear that repeat this idea.
Let me put you back together.
It felt like Scott just made a mistake and used Ultimate Custom Night to rectify that mistake. But now, I offer you an alternative solution. What if the reason it's a similar color to Afton's gold text, but slightly different, is because it isn't Afton, but someone or something pretending to be Afton, mimicking him, if you will. Remember, while we've been focusing on M2 as David Afton, there's another character that Secret of the Mimic introduces to us. M1, Fiona Murray. All she wanted to do was to put her son David back together.
I beg you, put it on the side and fix M2.
And in the secret ending, that's what she got. But then Afton swooped on in and took her son for himself. She was stuck inside the cradle, the Mex's machine. She would have been powerless to stop him. But, as we've talked about before, she was taken away and likely installed into Fazbear's system. So when Michael took things too far and got M2's head crushed inside of Fredbear, her motherly instincts kicked in. She managed to take over the walkie-talkie and speak directly to M2, promising to put her child back together again. Meanwhile,
No way! That actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's break it down. Okay. So let's break it down. Because it's an animatronics, aka robots, the arms can be replaced, the legs can be replaced, the torso, everything can be replaced if the core memory chip is undamaged. And you can technically put you back together. Wow. Okay, this dog.
Afton would have seen M2 as broken and of no use. If anything, he'd actually kind of been an inconvenience to him based on Fredbear's dialogue. Plus, he couldn't even fix him if he wanted to. He was just trying to figure out how it worked. He hadn't actually solved it. And regardless, he now had his new fun times who were using some kind of mimicking software. Those were more than what he needed. So he threw M2 away into the bowels of the rundown facility he owned, MCM, and cemented.
No, but it doesn't make sense. It's an animatronics. There was, I forgot which game is it, FNAF 4 or FNAF 5, I guess. I forgot. In which hospital beds deathbed. If you're an animatronic, why would you go to a clinic, a hospital? Why would you be... It raises another question, I'm so sorry.
The whole thing up to start over. But I suspect M2 wasn't completely broken. Edwin beat this thing to a mechanical pulp, and yet it managed to carry on. So once again, just like in the 1970s, this violence towards M2, it getting crushed by Fredbear, taught it how to be violent again. It began to rebuild itself with spare parts, again, now waiting for someone to free it so it could take its revenge. All the while, M1 was working on putting her son back together. She was uploaded to Fazbear's system, took control of the Pizzaplex and a young woman called Vanessa. And with Vanessa's help, she was able to start rebuilding her son, a new mimic robot that looked just like David did before he died. That's right, people, the Gregbot theory is alive and well. We theorized in our very first security breach theory that Gregory is actually a robot version of the Crying Child, due to just an avalanche of evidence. The fact that they look the same, the fact that Gregory doesn't have any records or parents, that he was living in the Pizzaplex, that Gregory is referred to as broken rather than injured, that when Glamrock Freddy gets Roxy's eyes, he says,
You look different to me.
that he has CRT-style vision when Vanny gets too close with what sounds like a sound illusion disc. There's his robotic actions that he takes in the books. Quote, he cocked his head and studied Tony for several seconds. And to top it all off, we have the post-it room, which is covered in notes, starting in binary, but then beginning to turn into phrases we know David Afton would have been saying, like party time or birthday time, like a robot coming into consciousness and learning the identity it's supposed to be taking on. The party was for him, after all.
Oh! Actually, if you think about it, it's technically one individual being reincarnated so many times in which you forget about who he is. Like, you are, let's say if you are MC, the main protagonist, the main character, and you are isekai so many times, you got hit by truck gun so many times that you got isekai and isekai to the point in which you forget who you are. And the unfortunate thing is, this is not isekai. This is just a doing of a few individuals in the same timeline. Gosh, that's dark.
All the signs point to him being a robot version of the Crying Child. It just made so much sense. And now I present you with this image. You can find it during the parachute ending of Secret of the Mimic, and it's of David sitting on top of a hill with M1. Now, tell me, does that look familiar to you? Because it should. It's almost identical to the image we get from the burn trap ending in Secret of the Mimic, with Gregory sitting on top of a hill with his protector, Glamrock Freddy. We are once again being shown the same looking scenario because they are meant to be showing us the same characters. Gregory is M1's attempt to recreate her broken child, David, M2. That might even explain why we get Gregory dropping the elevator on Cassie at the end of Ruin. It could be M1 or M2 controlling the system to get Cassie to come back, or it's because Gregory is still following his programming, acting under the orders of his mother, M1, to bring the family back together. Now, before anyone gets too mad at this idea, I recognize it's not perfect. For starters, while there's a bunch of evidence that does work when you look at it through the lens of M2 is the Crying Child, the trouble is, it basically all hinges on the secret ending being the canon ending, which is kinda hard to prove at this point, especially without the DLC or a sequel. Outside of that, there just isn't a lot of evidence for this line of thinking. You essentially have to go in with confirmation bias. The idea that your belief is correct, and so you can find evidence that works because you already believe it to be true. That's not to say that this couldn't be the answer. All I'm saying is that right now, with the evidence we have, it can feel like a bit of a stretch. There's also the issue of M2.
Tom makes a very good point. It's like, hey, if you have confirmation bias, that all humans have, you will just focus, you'll be hyper-focused and tunnel vision on the things that back up your claims. And there'll be some bits and pieces that doesn't really fit into the puzzle in which you ignore. It's not right, I think.
being in the basement of Ruin, I still firmly believe that the Mimic we meet in Ruin is M2 from Secret of the Mimic. So by having M2 go on to be the crying child, you have to jump through some weird hoops to make it survive Secret of the Mimic, but still end up locked away before Ruin happens. And those hoops are entirely speculative. It's me knowing point A and point C, and essentially just making up point B to fill in the gap, which isn't typically how I like to do things because it's speculative at best and fanficky at worst. There's also the small things, like why would we hear a flatline in FNAF 4 if David Afton was just a robot M2 the whole time? And of course, there's Gregbot, the most Marmite of our FNAF theories in recent years. Some people love it, and some people hate it. In fact, most people hate it. And believe me, I get it. I would love for some of our human characters to just be their own thing rather than copies of others. Plus, with M2 down in the basement, it means we end up with 3 mimics running around. And that just feels unsatisfying from a story perspective. Let's just say Vanessa is also a robot like the movie novelization seems to imply and just have a full set. And that was kind of the point of this whole experiment. If we've learnt anything from Secret of the Mimic, it was that everything we thought we knew at the end of the day were just theories. We don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and so we're left to interpret what we do have, and that can be done a couple of different ways. That doesn't mean a theory is wrong necessarily, it's just that nothing can be truly said with certainty. A new game or book or heck, a toy could drop and suddenly it's back to the drawing board. We have to be open-handed with these ideas, explore all the avenues and find the answers we think work best. If you don't like this interpretation, that's okay. There's a whole other ending of this theory waiting. FNAF's lore is open to you. And to really nail that home, I'm actually going to be going live right now, after this episode goes live, with John FNAF, Rytos, ID's Fantasy, Hyperdroid, and Dorko to talk about all of these interpretations and more in our live theorist talkback. So come by, say hi, and in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Well, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next video, which is going to be talking about the other options in this video. Game theory for FNAF. Did Fazbear really steal everything? The second video at the end. So yeah, look forward to it. And I'll be watching the 2-hour plus video of the talkback, the live. It's gonna be a very long video. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much. Bye bye.